That was actually on the second trip in 1925, but on the first trip they were playing with it and figuring out how to tweak it. And so Becerra was actually rolled up his sleeves and not just funding all this, but he's actually engaged. We have letters of him writing to the Heinz and Kaufman radio company. He said, we tried this, I think if we try this, we push this. So he was actively involved in getting it to that point. On the second voyage, they cleared all the cobwebs and they could get that signal across. And on board the ship was no less than a Navy guy named Roebuck, who was there to really check and see if this really could happen, because history was made. Even the New York Times ran a story on, it's over. The Pacific now just shrank, or any ocean would shrink. But we have just had the distinction, by the way, of being the first time in 500 interviews that something happened technologically on your cameras. I say that interestingly enough because on the Kaimiloa, you had the ability not only to take a photo, to take moving film, record on cylinders, and that had happened before on other ships. But on the Kaimiloa, they would develop it and show it the next day on board the ship. That had never happened. And so you have moments where, to really back up the issue that this was the end of an innocence, the natives were watching images moving of themselves and they couldn't understand. They'd walk up to the sheet on the deck, say, how is this working? So after that, you can imagine things were changing quickly from the 1920s on. Probably the next trip or the next ship there, it wouldn't have impressed them as much. And as they actually got closer to the population centers that are a little higher in the Pacific, like Tahiti, the natives are no longer wearing their native garb, but there's like slacks and shirts. So you had this moment in the middle of this voyage where you're really going back another 200-300 years or more.
Oh, I would say 2,000 years, because the natives that lived in that area of the Line Islands would come up there only periodically to do like fishing or gathering birds' eggs or turtles, and then they would return back to their home islands. So everything stayed more or less the way it was during that period of time. An occasional ship might stop, but it would go on its way and wouldn't leave a wake. But after that, we had, in the 30s, we had competition for empire, where you had the big powers of the world, US, Russia, China, Japan. All of these were going out there and claiming these lands as theirs. And while that didn't really change the natives too much, right after that came World War II. And we had a lot of action in the Pacific. And that was the end of everything. There was a whole new world. So really this ship was able to chronicle the last time anybody took a look at how people had lived there, Polynesians, for more than 2,000 years. And I think that's an important point also.